Biden is no longer going to be in the race. We got Kamala Harris, who's been nominated to her illustrious predecessor's position. We also have some updates with the Trump attack situation. There's some rumors that Joe Biden will be no longer with us here soon, which is just as I predicted in that article somewhat recently. We got clips from the Don Cheatle hearing, not Don Cheatle, whatever Cheatle's name is, the head of the Secret Service. And you've got some stuff on J.D. Vance, is that right?
Yeah, a little bit on J.D. Vance I want to talk about why he is probably the best of the choices we could have got out of that short list that was floating around for a while there. And then just some commentary on Kamala Harris, if she is indeed the nominee, what that might look like.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. The boys are back in the studio.
Should have got Thin Lizzy playing at the beginning.
I know, right? So we're glad to be here. We're Vigilant News. Justin and Ryan, hosts and founders of Vigilant News. So you can follow us at the vigilant.news website. We'll have the show notes up there. I believe they're already up there. I've had quite a day, so I'm trying to get everything sorted out. I got some pretty crazy news, good news. Still crazy news for y'all today. We'll get into some of that here shortly. It's pretty life-changing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, let me get the studio light on here. So I'm so flustered with everything that's going on. Forgot to get the studio light on. There we go.
Oh, it feels, like being born again here. I haven't been in the studio since early May, I don't think. It's been a while, folks.
Yeah, quite some time. It's right. It's been like 2 months.
Yeah.
Wow. So
good to be back in the saddle. The seat was still warm. I don't know why, but but it is.
Yeah. It was quite the past few months. I mean, as much crazy stuff has been happening in the world, it's definitely, I think, there's our own little version of it's happening in life right now. So the audience knows why you're up there to a certain extent.
Up in Michigan?
Yeah. Just like you had talked about some of it. So they sent their prayers and well wishes and
thanks everybody
and all of that.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, so we've got a pretty interesting show today. Let's see, what should we do first? I guess while people are filing in, we'll play some of these Don Cheatle. I keep wanting to say Don Cheatle.
Don Cheatle.
No, it's not Don Cheatle. Her name is...
Cheatle is her last name.
Cheatle's her last name. I can't remember her first name.
Yeah.
I just got stuck with Cheatle, and that's all I want to think about for her. Kimberly Cheatle. That's it, Kimberly Cheatle. So let me pull up some of those clips.
Formerly in charge of something for PepsiCo.
That's right.
So Cheatle, it's still relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Pepsi own Cheetos?
I'm not sure, but I was thinking like, I don't even know if I should get into this. This is quite the rant, but like we clearly live in an economy that is favored for the political elite. Like if you're not, there's a kind of like hidden water line of an economy that we deal with. And if you're below the water line, then your life's a struggle. You never have enough money. If you do have enough money for a little bit, you've got retirement, you got healthcare, you got kids coming, you got cars breaking down, house breaking down, you name it. There's all sorts of things that are coming to steal your assets like a thief in the night. But if you got enough, you're above that water line, well, you got a little money to play with. And then if you're smart about your investments, then your money makes money for you, and you don't really have to work as much. So the burden of life decreases significantly the higher you get out of that middle water line, so to speak. Well, I was thinking, like, how does somebody like Cheatle, who's clearly an inept moron, how does she actually get any prestige in life? Like, what is she doing? And I'm sure, I'm being colorful, obviously. I don't think she's literally a moron, but her performance recently certainly was moronic if we were to take the official story correctly. But she manages to get, these cushy positions in PepsiCo, and that's kind of the way it works, is like a non-family-based cronyism that happens, where if you're in the inside club, you get the jobs that make sure you get paid. You got plenty of time to scheme, wine, and dine, and you're not the people who would threaten you, the true patriots out there, the true people who have good character and upstanding virtue, are scrambling on the hamster wheel to try to make ends meet while you're just scheming and dealing. So, anyway, so here's Kim Cheatle. Let me pull this up here. So this is one of the clips. Is this the first one I wanted to play? Hold on. There's another one I think I wanted to play first. Hold on 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. There's a one with, what's that gal's name? Not this one. She's a
lady in
congresswoman.
Congress.
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Which side
Nancy
of the aisle?
Mace, that's it.
Who?
Nancy Mace.
Okay.
So here, let's play a little bit of this one. This is a pretty good one.
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest. Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Cheatle, the American people are watching, and they're wondering if there are any questions you can answer honestly today. So, Director Cheatle, I have a series of questions, very specific questions. I want very specific answers. Most of my questions are going to demand a yes or no answer. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay, my first question. Both sides of the aisle today have asked for your resignation. Would you like to use my 5 minutes to draft your resignation letter, yes or no?
No, thank you.
Was this a colossal failure?
It was a failure.
Yes or no? Was it a colossal failure is the question, yes or no?
I have admitted this is a terrible.
This is a yes or no series of questions. Was this a colossal failure, yes or no?
Yes.
Was this tragedy preventable, yes or no?
Yes.
Has the Secret Service been transparent with this committee?
Yes.
Would you say the fact that we had to issue a subpoena to get you to show up today as being transparent, yes or no?
I have always been
Yes
eager to
or no?
come
You didn't
and
want to
talk
answer
to
the question.
committee.
We had to issue a subpoena to get you to show up today. That is not transparent, by the way.
Given to her.
You stated earlier, Secret Service is not political. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say leaking your opening statement to Punchbowl News, Politico's Playbook, and Washington Post several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political, yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's bullshit. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record articles by Punchbowl News, Political Playbook, Washington Post, all done at 5:24 a.m., 6:12 a.m., 6:34 a.m., a solid 3 to 4 hours before this committee got your statement.
Without objection, so ordered.
Okay. Is the Secret Service fully cooperating with our committee?
Yes.
Okay, you say you're fully cooperating with this committee. On July 15th, this committee sent you a list of demands of information that we wanted. Has the Secret Service provided this committee a complete list of all law enforcement personnel that were there that day? Have you done that? Have you provided a list to the Oversight Committee? Yes or
I
no?
will have to get back to you on that.
That is a no. Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest.
Mr. Chairman,
Completely
Mr.
dishonest.
Chairman, I want to.
I'm
Come
gonna
on.
We have to
continue.
maintain decorum in.
All right, well, that's the meat and potatoes of the clip right there.
She's
So,
heated. It seems like.
yeah, she's pissed. I mean, I get it. Like, these people just totally blew it. You got any initial comments?
Well, you never know when they're, ginning it up for the cameras and for the voters. And when they're legitimately upset. I like the questions that she's asking, putting her feet to the fire. Yeah, I probably would refrain from the language, the potty mouth language that she used. But I guess sometimes the further we go along down this timeline, the more of a circus Congress really is becoming. So maybe it's par for the course, I guess. But it's just going to cause AOC to chime in and be like, "Oh my God, Chairman, can we? I don't know. It's stuff like that they'll show on television and try to make us all look crazy. So I don't think it really does us a service. But yeah, that was my initial thoughts on all that.
Yeah, we've seen, to your point about the circus, like there's a kind of disrespectful, like, I got the talking stick now, I'm gonna poo-poo you
Yeah.
kind of demeanor to Congress sometimes, which, we kind of live in a pretty juvenile culture thanks to the cabal, so I get that why
true,
that's necessary in some degrees, but I also think it's, like, not so productive.
Yeah.
You
It
know.
also kind of makes people want to tune out, I think, too.
Yeah.
Whenever there's these, like, interpersonal, like, back and forth happening, like AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene and the,
Oh,
the
right.
Congress, where she's like, "Girl, I'm gonna," like
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But it's also entertaining, in its own way. But that's just it is reflective of our modern society. So
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Kimberly Cheatle has said a few things, so there's a couple more clips we're gonna play. I've watched all the clips that have surfaced thus far. They're all basically what we just saw, with the exception of a few that we're gonna play. So we've kind of condensed it and saved you some time and not having to watch a bunch of people do what we just saw. To Nancy Mace's credit, I think she's doing for as good as a senator or a congressperson can do these days. She seems to be doing a pretty good job, and she uses that pulpit to expose issues that are probably pretty important. That being said, I hope we can there's a future where we can actually get down to doing the business that the people sent these guys up to Congress for, and not have this grandstanding in front of the camera just be all the things that happen. But let's review some of the failures of the Secret Service. Secret Service did not properly do a security sweep of the Butler, Pennsylvania, where the shooting of the president happened. There was a structure 130 yards away that was well within the, I believe, 1,000-yard radius that Dan Bongino talked about as being something that needed to be swept. That was not taken care of. There were clear places where not only sniper teams potentially would be set up, so people who are trying to kill the president, which is like the one that Crooks was on top of that building, but there are places like the water tower, which they didn't place sniper teams on. You'd think they would have a high vantage point to have a lot of counter sniper activity, like taking out Matthew Crooks. So Thomas Matthew Crooks. So I think there's clear failures here. The Kimberly Cheatle said that the roof was too sloped, and that's partially why you couldn't have anybody over there, which she's since recanted that statement to a certain extent. So it's just a total dropping of the ball, incompetence, and in my opinion, knowing how sophisticated some of these guys can be, I think they're trying to run cover right now, because my personal opinion, as I've released on my Substack over the past week and a half or so, is that they were intending on killing Trump, and it failed spectacularly. And now they're implementing a lot of Plan Bs, and they're not really coordinated with that. So
yeah, I've seen both Luke Rudkowski and then obviously X22 has been saying this for a while, that the deep state is like a cornered animal right now, and they're going to be lashing out, and that this is just one way that they're doing it. And maybe just the fact that, I don't know if you've covered this on the show while I was gone, but the fact that Morning Joe was canceled the next day because there was supposedly going to be this wall-to-wall coverage of news, and that they needed the time slot. So, Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, I think they were told essentially don't bother making a show. Mm-hmm. And then when Trump wasn't assassinated, suddenly they had to make a show again. So there's some weird stuff going on. It seemed like we also have Victoria Nuland out there saying, "Hey, we don't have to worry about Trump. He's not going to be in office," even though all signs point to him winning the election. That's a little suspicious as well. So, there's a lot of strange stuff going on, and it's probably likely that this assassination attempt is literally just the first real lashing out.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think you're spot on. And there's some updates we'll talk about with respect to the shooting. And it occurred to me, you haven't really had a chance to opine on the shooting. Do you want to share anything about the shooting in general?
Man, I don't know what to think about the shooting, because, I always try to look at what's going on in the world through multiple lenses, one being the more surface level, I guess, journalistic way of looking at things, where you're objective and you don't get swayed by this hero worship or anything like that, and you try to look at it even from your detractor's point of view, and try to make sense of things. And from that way, it's I guess easier to comment on the shooting. It's harder, I think, to comment on it in any kind of devolution or Q-op perspective, because it really just kind of calls a lot of things into question. There was mentions in the drops, POTUS is 100% insulated. Any suggestion that he's a target is, I don't remember the exact wordage, but something to that effect. And then yet this guy can climb up on a roof and shoot at Trump. So that implies, makes me think that it's 100% an op. But is it, a deep state op? Is it the Patriot op? You know what I mean? it's been nothing but a benefit to Trump beyond getting shot in the ear, aside from people who actually got shot and one man who got killed. So that it's like, if it's an actual assassination attempt and wasn't some kind of like all the world's a stage kind of 5G warfare tactic deployed by the White Hats, then he's not as insulated as it would seem, as they've made it seem like throughout all of the drops, like assuring us that nothing can touch Trump. In fact, it looked like quite easily some little like 20-year-old MK Ultra dweeb got up on a roof and almost killed him. If that's indeed true. If not, then it's a white hat thing. It's certainly feeding into the folklore that Trump is chosen by God and all this stuff, and like kind of galvanizing his base, and who knows, there could be things down the road like investigations. This could lead to like some big names maybe. I'm not really, I wouldn't put my money on that, but that's like one potential way this could play out is in a second Trump term, they open investigations into what happened with the assassination attempt, and it leads to some pretty big names. There's so many different ways you can look at it, but nothing that really makes sense without getting way out into the realm of sci-fi. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense that, if there's this all-pervasive white hat alliance that's like using, like all kinds of crazy hidden technology to fight this 5G war, that some little guy could climb up on a roof and almost kill the president. And it also doesn't make sense to me really that it would be a white hat op either, because somebody died. At least that's what they're saying, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know, there's so many weird ways to look at it, and you can't really make sense of it without getting into way off into conspiracy land. So I have several like possibilities that I'm entertaining, but I have no definitive stance on what the hell we witnessed one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, I've heard, it's everything from it was an op by Trump to gain more popularity, which is the one that's popular on the left. You got it's an op by the White Hats, nobody actually died, that kind of thing. You got an op that somebody did die, and Trump knew about it and somehow deflected the bullet. That's the one I'm kind of putting a little bit of my money on right now, although I got cash in every spot right now at this point. And then there's the one that literally there was no plan for the White House didn't have any plan. Trump was just doing his thing, and then by the grace of God, the bullet like got plucked from the air and moved, or something to that effect. So I don't know what is going on, but I think definitively one thing we can say is that this is causing a massive stir within the political landscape. In my opinion, I think what is very settled for me is that they did plan to try to kill him, because the excuse is terrible, as we've seen with Cheatle, and we'll see some more clips here in a moment. It's either she's grossly incompetent, even though she's been in the Secret Service for 22 years and has overseen something like, I don't know, a few hundred operations to save people, or to prevent people from being murdered, things like this, or she's going along with something, and she's got the demeanor, body language wise, tone of voice wise, as somebody who's skirting a line because there's things she can't say for whatever reason. So anyways.
So Adam, he's in the chat. He said, Q had to say that POTUS is insulated, otherwise morale would seriously suffer. That makes sense. Alternatively, maybe they saw Trump survive an assassination attempt with Project Looking Glass. That's something that we kind of talked about here at the house for the last couple days too, as a possibility. But that's it though. You can't really just explain it away without going to a some kind of like secret space age technology kind of explanation, because nothing else makes sense. So I wonder if we'll ever really get down to the, what really happened that day. And yeah, something like Project Looking Glass, or what Justin often mentions about somehow they use some kind of, I don't know, sonic weaponry to divert the bullet or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
UFO tech kind of stuff. Because, I mean, we know that they have some kind of super high tech. It's not technology progressed for 150 years down a very strong course along this arc, and then all of a sudden, right at the end of World War II, the brakes get slammed. We don't have any real new technology outside of computers come along. It seems a little suspicious to me, and I think there's definitely a compelling case to be made that we do have, UFO type technology. That we've got technology that can move somebody like a la the Nimitz footage, the UFO Nimitz footage, which shows these seeming spacecraft moving around, like turning on a dime without, if the G forces were actually experienced by a human being, they'd be killed. So who knows at this point? It's like I said, or like you were saying, it's not, we could literally speculate forever about what could have happened, but one thing what we can prove, which I think is, what probably a better place for the conversation is Trump survived. He's more popular than ever. He's probably going to win the election. The Democrats are scrambling, and what's going to happen after that, so.
I still think that what's on the table is that it is like some kind of, you remember all of the Ghost in the Machine commercials that we've seen where they just very clearly show you how everything, the world's a stage. I would be very surprised if it wasn't some kind of staged event, honestly. Right. I know that's what the left's saying, and it's all like, like they seem unhinged about it, all the bluing on stuff, but like, it's what makes the most sense to me, even though I know it's not going to be a popular opinion with folks. And even though, as far as the guy who got killed, I'm not saying this is the case, but, you could manufacture a person, like,
Totally, yeah.
And have like a whole thing now, or it could be that, I don't know. I don't want to get into it because there was very clearly a body hauled off that day. So right. Even that is something I can't completely get behind, but the fact that the guy who took the picture of the bullet whizzing by Trump was supposedly the exact same guy who got the picture of George W. Bush in the classroom on 9/11. Like, what are the odds you're going to be there for all? And then some other picture, too, that was like some famous picture. Mm-hmm. It's like, what are the odds that this guy is going to always be Johnny on the spot when the legendary pictures are taken?
Right, exactly.
So there's some weird things out there, but it's still not enough to feel conclusive about anything in either direction, for me anyway.
Yep, 100%. Well, let us know what you guys think in the chat. What's your pet theory? What are the ones you've heard? We'd really be curious. Put a comment down there. Let's go ahead and watch some more clips from the cheat.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of this yet.
Okay, so we're going to skip that one because there's not really a whole lot that comes out from that one. This one is a pretty good one. All right, so here we go.
There was some report. So, did he have a rangefinder? There was some reports that the individual had a rangefinder. That would certainly raise my suspicion. Did he have a rangefinder?
Yes, he did, but may I explain that at a number of our sites, especially when you're at outdoor venues, a rangefinder is not a prohibited item. It is sometimes an item that is brought in by individuals if you're going to be in the back.
Did anybody confront him on that? Anybody ask him questions? What are you doing with the rangefinder? Anybody confront him on his presence where he was in proximity to the president?
So again, to my knowledge, I believe that was the process that was taking place, was to locate the individual.
Did they confront him? Did they go up to him? Did they talk to him?
I do not have those details at this time.
Those are important details.
I think you would have those details.
Did he have a rangefinder?
So, yeah, kind of like what he was getting at. Why is it that this guy had a rangefinder? It's not. I don't know if rangefinders have some other potentially harmful use. I'm assuming you can.
I use them in golf.
Okay, so yeah, if you're gonna do something that requires understanding what a distance is, so that you can plot something, I don't know, maybe a drone, maybe a picture you're trying to take photographs, something like that, I'd imagine this be okay. But as the Secret Service, you want to evaluate all plots. I can tell you, if I was running the Secret Service, anything that would potentially constitute being used as a weapon or as in an assassination attempt would be evaluated and investigated, especially when I've just had an increase of my funding. And I think it went up something like 55% or maybe 30%. So these guys got more money dumped into their lap somewhat recently to protect like the biggest man, arguably, who needs protecting, which is Donald J. Trump, the most popular political figure in the world right now, who's Donald J. Trump. He should have some of these things looked at. So.
Well, we know they're not using any funds to protect Robert Kennedy. Well, I guess now they are, but they weren't previously.
So there's that. All right, so let's play another clip here.
You know what he did? Do you know what Stuart Knight did when he was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? Do you know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. And Stuart Knight was not a Democratic appointee or a Republican appointee. Look, I'm not questioning your judgment. I just don't think this is partisan. if you have an assassination attempt on a president, a former president, or a candidate, you need to resign. That's what Stuart Knight did. He was a Republican appointee, and he took responsibility. And I think you need to reflect. This is not a question of you. It's a question of the American people. You cannot go leading a Secret Service agency when there is an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate. I would say that about anyone who is running. And so I guess my question to you is, what's the difference between your position and what Stuart Knight did?
What I will tell you, sir, is that I am dedicated to finding the answers to what happened. And like every Secret Service agent, we don't shirk from our responsibilities. I will remain on and be responsible to the agency, to this committee, to the former president, and to the American public.
But is there a reason you wouldn't just do what Stuart Knight did after the Reagan assassination attempt?
I believe that I provided an answer.
Oh my God.
There's nothing more that you have to say? I mean, do you really believe at this moment, given how divided the country is and the questions asked, that your service in this role is the best for the nation? I mean, I'm not saying you can't do public service again, you can't do something else again. Do you really genuinely in your heart believe that you being in this role is what's right for America at this moment?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, is she not resigning because there really is something to cover up? And if she doesn't resign, then does that somehow, like, prevent whatever issues were at play with the attempted assassination of Trump that I think the Secret Service was complicit in, at the very least incompetent and negligent? Is that going to be revealed? I don't know. I mean, but everybody's calling for her to resign, so you'd think she'd do it. All right, so here we've got a clip of AOC actually being the one with more decorum in the roundup here. She actually has a pretty good question. I agree with Vigilant Fox here. So here, let's take a look at this one.
That you established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of
question.
weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Wow, pathetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Not looking too good for her, but also, you know, will there be any consequences prior to a Trump administration?
That's a good question. Yeah, it was pretty terrible. I mean, you know, for them to not even consider that, it just seems so, like, horrible. Like, if I was Trump and I had had this position that I'm trying to run for, and I know all these people are gunning for me, I would not trust the Secret Service. I would have my own men that I actually trust doing real security on these kind of things. So, all right, here we got the last clip. I forget who's doing the
They
interview
were-
here.
It's as
Oh, that's
telling
right. Here we go.
as it is chilling. We have satellite images from the Butler Fairgrounds. Have you visited the site?
No, I have not.
9 days and you have not visited the site. Wow. You should have been there that night. Did you talk to, that evening, did you talk to the team, the heroes that surrounded the president? Did you call them that night?
They were still operational work.
So that's an answer is no. Did you call them the next day?
President. Yes, I spoke with.
You called them the very next day, not the day of, or was it 72 hours after?
I don't know the timeline, but I spoke with
Okay,
them
because you're under oath.
immediately
I
following.
think it was 72 hours after you waited 3 days. What is immediately clear is that there are a number of structures that need to be secured. Of these, Director, other than the first, immediate 4, what's the most dangerous site that should have been secured? Because security 101, you got to mitigate the high ground.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what the next most dangerous site, what was the closest structure to the president, other than the 4 immediate ones that you had your counter sniper teams on?
There are a number of structures around that event site.
You know who the shooter knew? The shooter has visited the site 2 more times than you have, and he had a drone, and he picked the AGR building. So you said, do you remember in an ABC interview you did that you didn't have people on the roof of the AGR building because you were worried about safety because of the slope?
I recall that statement.
Okay. Does the Secret Service have written policy you can share with us about slope roofs?
No.
Okay. So why'd you act like there was one? Because is it your practice to comment on enormous events of enormous national implications when you're ignorant of the facts? That's rhetorical. So here's this thing with the slopes. You go all up to like 1812. You can go to a 112, which is about as flat as you can get without it being completely flat. And you're saying that there was a danger, safety concern there. But the problem is, Director, you put your counter snipers on a 312 roof, which is steeper than the 112. And by the way, the 112 is ADA compliant. You can build a ramp for a wheelchair on a 112 roof. So these are nothing but pathetic excuses, and they make no sense, and they're a bunch of cow dung. All the law enforcement I've spoken with over the last 9 days are amazed that the AGR rooftop was not secure. And you want to know why? Because it's dangerous. I have never had any long gun training in my life. I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life. It was 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas, where you recreated what happened in Butler. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I knew that he had a scope. I didn't know what kind, red dot or magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was? 15 out of 16 kill shots. And the one I missed would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate. And that shooter was a better shot than me. It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Comparatore life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous. It was the nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Garden Doritos.
Chair Reagan.
All right, so there you go.
So he follows Elon Musk on Twitter.
Oh, yeah? Was that an Elon Musk reference right there?
Like before, I think that was the first time I even heard about this lady's name was Elon Musk made a post about how she used to guard Cheetos, and now she's working as head of the Secret Service, which is kind of an interesting career jump.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the batch of clips that we got out of the hearing. There might be a couple more that pop out, so we'll certainly keep you abreast of that. You can follow us on our Telegram channel. You can also follow us on True Social. We post a lot of this kind of stuff there, certainly on Telegram more than anywhere else. And if you go to vigilant.news, at the bottom of the show notes, which we have available for today, you can find our Substacks and our Telegram channels. All right, so what do you think? You want to do some...
Well, we could talk about some of the stuff that's been going on real recently, such as, Biden backing out of the 2024 election as of, what was it, yesterday? Or was it the day before? I think it was yesterday that it became official.
Yep.
So I might have trouble pulling some of these things up, but...
You in the top secret?
Yeah, so... Kamala Harris for president. I think we're all assuming that's going to be the direction, though it's not completely official yet until the Democrat National Convention. Is that going to be the play? I think it kind of has to be with some kind of insider as VP. Maybe even Hillary, which should make Kamala nervous, for health. Catch my drift, as it were.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to show everybody is this tweet where Elon Musk is responding to Alexander Soros, of all people. It was on Twitter. It was today? This morning, maybe? Okay. Let me see. When was this posted? It doesn't really say, but it had to have been within the last 24 hours or so. So, there it is. Elon Musk. Well, Alexander Soros, you can see Soros has posted pictures of himself, a deep politician, with Kamala Harris, a surface politician. And there's also a picture of he and his soon-to-be wife, Huma Abedin, with the second lady, to which Elon Musk poignantly replied, "I'd like to thank Alexander Soros for not keeping everyone in suspense about who the next puppet will be," which is hilarious. I don't get how the Musk haters can't at least concede that he plays the cultural game better than most on the right do, as far as, with a witty commentary on Twitter, a great leader that doesn't necessarily make, but it's great for instances like this. I mean, I posted this, and I've got even friends on the left who are like laugh reacting it. Because to their credit, a lot of people on the left kind of see what's going on now.
Right.
Especially after that debate. Anyway, so this kind of thing is hilarious. It's always the things that are the most consequential which provide the most comic gold. Beyond that, there's probably a lot of fear in the deep state about whether Kamala will be a better orator than the mentally fermented ancient that was Joe Biden. Because remember, Joe Biden, once upon a time, when he still had all his faculties, even though he was corrupt as hell and incompetent, he was a decent speaker. And he wasn't like the best speaker in the world, but, he could command an audience. He was an actor, essentially, and he was pretty good at it. Kamala Harris has never been able to count oration among her talents.
No.
And here I've actually compiled a selection of Kamala Harris's greatest hits.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here we go.
We don't even need to watch the whole thing for you to get the gist, but, this is just a selection of some of the gems.
There we go. All right, here we go. You guys are going to be in for a real treat here.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. What can 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 be unburdened by what has been. What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What 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 can be unburdened by what has been. Who we can be
So many times.
unburdened by who we have been. What can be unburdened by what has been. Where we can be unburdened by where we have been and unburdened by where we are right now. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What could be unburdened by what had been. What can be unburdened by what has 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 been. Unburdened by what has been, believing in what can be. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened.
Is it? Oh, it's 4 minutes. Wow. Okay.
4 minutes that we're doing.
Good Lord. Wow.
So this is apparently the best that the party can do, which I think says a lot for our chances in November. But remember, if they could convince most of the country that Joe Biden won the last election, then chances are they could probably do it again. I mean, even as obvious as it is, I still believe that when people see their TV telling them something, they're going to believe it. Not everybody, obviously, but enough people. And then the people who, don't believe it, not all of them are they might be engaged in following this information war, but they're just too lazy to do anything.
Yeah.
Because we're just so trained to watch it from afar and comment on it and get all worked up about it, but not really do a whole lot of anything. Now, there were a lot of people, to their credit, in the wake of the 2020 election, out there doing things. There was, Seth Keshel, Raj Doraisamy. There were so many people out there doing stuff and trying to mobilize folks. And, maybe we'll reach a point where it's just so obvious this time. But, who knows what kind of cards they could still pull out with this election. Cyber attack stuff, war stuff, who knows? But yeah, if it is a free and fair election and Kamala Harris is the person, even with a Hillary Clinton VP kind of thing going on, it's over.
She's got to worry about this thing right here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm so glad somebody whipped that up
I
already.
saw this yesterday. I like burst out laughing. This is what's it? Tanya Harding as Hillary Clinton, and Nancy Kerrigan as Kamala Harris. So just beautiful, amazing. Okay.
So, will there be a Trump-Harris debate if she is the nominee? That's what I want to know. Because, I think somehow it would be even better than the Trump-Biden debate that we just saw, which will likely go down in history as being, one of the best debates of all time. Maybe best isn't the operative word, but, remembered for its almost cartoonish, dark comedic overtones. And if Harris is the nominee, and she does pick Hillary as a running mate, will we see a Vance-Hillary debate? My money is on probably no more debates, but hey, I guess we'll see. We don't know for sure that Kamala is even going to get the nomination, so let's just sit tight and watch how this show unfolds. But on the note of J.D. Vance, I kind of wanted to talk about Trump's selection of Vance for a bit. So I'll have a article coming out for Badlands tomorrow on the Substack that will take all of the things I'm about to mention a lot further, and I hope you guys will check that out when it drops at 1 p.m. tomorrow. But I see the Vance selection, I guess, as being I guess a positive sign for where things are going. So there are many tribes and schools of thought within this great consortium that is MAGAdom. Here at Vigilant News and throughout the greater community that spawned us, we see individuals who are steadfast in their support for the former president, but there are those who remain more skeptical, despite a yearning for Trump to be the thing that everyone hopes he is, what the more Q-centric areas of the internet claim that he is. These individuals, these skeptics that want to like Trump but are on the fence, they're less willing to forgive or consider his reasons for things like Operation Warp Speed or the hiring of establishment neocons like John Bolton or Mike Pompeo or Nikki Haley. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there are those who are behind Trump no matter what, and then there are those who still need a little convincing that the second administration won't be, plagued by the what seem like errors from the first. And I think his vice president selection is really the first glimpse that we're getting into what a second Trump term would look like. Admittedly, I myself did experience a modicum of fear when I saw names like Marco Rubio and Tim Scott at the top of that short list that was floating around for a while. Visions of a second Trump term hampered by another Pencean rhino, like worm tongue in his ear, kind of like steering his decision making, if that indeed is what was going on. In the Flynn movie, General Flynn kind of paints that picture. And we can kind of explain that away in any number of ways, but I mean, if you're taking people's at their word, Pence was a negative influence on Trump. Obviously, not everyone believes that. There's all kinds of other theories out there. Maybe those are true, maybe they're not. Regardless, the people on the outside who haven't been along for the ride for devolution and the drops, they don't understand all that. So they see it as a mistake. And when he eventually selected JD Vance, I definitely breathed a sigh of relief. But at first I had no idea really how brilliant of a selection Vance would be. So first consider the perspective, I guess, of somebody that isn't part of our movement. They don't have the emotional investment like we do in Trump and all of the decisions that he makes. The kind of emotional investment that allows us to overlook things that are glaring red flags to people who haven't been around for this whole information war. We can explain things away like they're part of some unknowable 5D chess move, or like they're just actors playing their part in regards to Pompeo or Pence. That kind of explanation doesn't fly with these folks on the outside who are looking for a reason to support Trump. So, playing in their I guess arena, we have to try to convince them that this second Trump term is going to be different. So these onlookers see Trump as perpetually oscillating between two opposing impulses. There's the Trump on one hand that in 2016 conducted his campaign on the promise that he's going to subvert and overturn the dogma of the Democrat establishment, but also the Republican establishment as well. And then there's the version of Trump that, again, hired, he filled his cabinet with Republican establishment neocons. So naturally, everyone should be wondering what this second Trump term is going to look like. And like I said, this Vance selection, I think, is indicative of the direction that a lot of us are hoping it'll go in. So on Vance, I don't think he's the perfect politician. I don't think that there ever was or will ever be such a thing. And he holds a lot of views and has said a lot of things that I personally oppose. Granted, these are things that you pretty much have to have, or at least appear to have, in order to even maintain a career in Washington. So, that's something to consider. Vance is young. He's 39 years old, which acts kind of as a counterweight to this widely held belief on both sides of the political aisle that we're being ruled, we're living under a gerontocracy, or a rule of the elderly, because, whether it's Biden or Trump, it's the two of the oldest presidents in our history. So that's a benefit. And there has been, Trump's kind of made it seem like this is somebody who can carry on the torch when I'm gone. Vance is articulate. He's effective in interviews. But most importantly, he has an impressive record of actually defending the working class in a way that I think will be critical for Trump to win the swing states that he mentioned in his initial announcement on Truth Social. Beyond that, Vance might have landed Trump the impossible fish, the Teamsters Union. So the Teamster president, Sean O'Brien, not hours after Vance was named Trump's running mate, went on Fox News. We actually have a clip of that. And he communicated why the Teamsters regard Vance as an important ally to the working class. There we go.
This is all right.
This is remarkable.
J.D. Vance, the short time that we've worked together, he's been great on Teamster issues. He is co-sponsored an airline manufacturing bill that addresses outsourcing of critical airline maintenance to China. He's also supported paid sick leave for our railroad workers. If you remember that situation a couple of years ago, where they weren't getting sick time, he stepped right up. He's also been very vocal and supportive of holding employers accountable who try and skirt their obligation under an independent contractor model known as DSP. So he's been right there on all our issues. We've publicly stated it. And look, at this day and age, there's nothing better than having a U.S. Marine represented as a vice president candidate. J.D. Vance.
So, immediately MSNBC and similar outlets were out there saying that, oh, what a terrible selection Vance was. He's not going to bring anyone new into the fold. He's just going to appeal to the MAGA base that's already established. But that is proof of otherwise. The Teamster Union, these are hardline supporters of the Democrats, going back decades. You know, they're like vote blue no matter who forever, indefinitely. It's just assumed that those are all Democrat votes. Now it seems like that's no longer the case. So the very next day after that that TV spot he was on Fox News, we witnessed a historic event. The Teamster president not only attended the RNC, he actually spoke at the event, saying, quote, "You can have whatever opinion you want, but one thing is clear. President Trump is a candidate who's unafraid to hear from new, loud, and often critical voices. He is making lasting inroads with union leaders and broadening the Republican tent in a historic way." So, I mean, yes, like they want to make it seem like it was a bad choice, but that's just based in fear because they, you know, you can't look at this. You can't look at the president of the Teamsters Union coming to the RNC and speaking there as being indicative of, you know, not getting any new votes through the Vance pick, because that's not true at all. And then there's another immediate boon is the military background that he has. It might seem trivial to some, but having a Marine in the White House is a prospect that seems appealing to a significant portion of the country. And then there's this article. We got a headline. I think I popped it in the top secret Vigilant news. It was from Politico. The original title of the article is something about like leaving their Reaganite roots, but now the headline is, quote, "Scared to death, GOP security hawks slam Vance selection." So I mean, just that headline alone, I think, is a good
my
sign.
man.
yeah, my man. So, you know, immediately after the announcement, this cadre of warmongers in the Republican House scurried over to Politico to express their disapproval of the Vance selection, many doing so behind a wall of anonymity. They are particularly upset about his reluctance to endlessly fund the war in Ukraine, which Politico claimed, quote, "accelerates his party's rejection of its Reaganite roots," which I think is interesting considering that, you know, Reagan wasn't nearly as much of a warmonger as George Bush, you know, but they don't want to say Bushian roots because, you know, everyone still kind of remembers the Bush Jr. presidency and they don't want it to be associated with him, you know, because admittedly, I mean, honestly, right now, a lot of these, like Politico and any of these other leftist outlets, their foreign policy is identical to the Bush era foreign policy at this point. Anyway, Politico reports, should Trump prevail in November, the non-interventionists will have one of their most articulate advocates at Trump's side. And that's a new term, the non-interventionist or the isolationist. Those are what we're calling the anti-war right now. What worries the Hawks is that Vance may also be the last advisor in the former president's ear. That's also something that Flynn kind of alluded to, that Pence, you know, people want to say the vice president doesn't have any power, but he's the last person in the president's ear before he makes a decision. That's quite a lot of power. Representative Ken Calvert, a Republican from California, who oversees military spending as the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee chair, told one associate, according to a person familiar with the exchange, quote, "The Ukrainians better hurry up and win." Another influential congressional Republican simply told me about the Vance selection, saying, quote, "I'm scared to death." In a series of interviews, Republicans from the Reaganite wing openly urged Trump to counter Vance's influence by appointing more hawkish national security officials. Quote, "I would love to see more like-minded people in cabinet positions," said Senator Joni Ernst, Republican of Iowa. He said, citing former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Tom Cotton, both hawks, as Ernst-esque picks. The Hawks are eager to install Pompeo at the Defense Department and to see Cotton at the CIA or inside the White House, and are supportive of Senator Bill Hagerty, a Republican from Tennessee, or Robert O'Brien, Trump's first-term national security advisor, as Secretary of State. So, you know, they're happy when they've got some of their own in there kind of, you know, making some decisions. Despite how it reads, I think this article is actually an extremely encouraging sign. Trump's first term was infested with these establishment Republican neocons. And his VP choice, unlike Pence, actually seems to scare them, which I like, you know? The choice of J.D. Vance indicates that the people who will be in Trump's ear are the people who are in favor of a rejection of the neocon ideology. And lastly, we have a tweet from Luke Rudkowski, which I think sums up the direction that this political realignment on the right is heading in. And it should be in the... did it not just pull it up?
I think it just pulled up the main...
Well, I think I popped a picture in there.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
This one?
No, yeah.
Oh, right here. Okay.
Yeah, so
All right,
if you guys can see this on the
there
screen.
we go.
This is from MSNBC's reporting, like notable Republicans not attending the RNC this year. And they were doing it as if it was some kind of tragedy that the likes of Liz Cheney and Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney weren't at the RNC. It's like hell's frozen over and they completely forgot about all the reporting they did from like 2003 onward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the woes of the Bush era, which led to the deaths of countless Iraqis, countless Americans. You know, none of that matters anymore in the face of Trump. So I think all of this is indicative of a positive direction that we're moving in. And I think Vance is the best man for the job, at least when you consider the short list that was going around with like guys like
not Vivek, but not Tom Cotton, but the guy in Florida.
Yeah. Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik, all of these folks. I think that J.D. Vance was the best choice. He's not as fun as like Tulsi Gabbard or General Flynn or Vivek, but I think that there's probably a lot more thought than we understand put into this choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I happen to have a clip here of when J.D. Vance today, I believe, was recounting when he was asked by President Trump to be his VP. So let's take a look at that.
When President Trump asked me to be his running mate, I really had no idea what was coming. What happened is I left my home in Cincinnati, so we live not too far from here, about a 35-minute drive, 45 minutes depending on traffic, and we went to Milwaukee on Monday morning, and I had no idea. I thought maybe he was going to ask me, but I thought I might ask somebody else. There were a lot of good guys running. Marco Rubio, a dear friend of mine, really great public servant, a number of other folks as well. So I had no idea what was coming. And when the president called me and asked me, he said, "Would you like to run as my vice presidential running mate?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course, right? What do you?" We didn't come all this way to say no. But he did something that was really amazing afterwards. He said, "Well, what do you think about the statement I'm about to put out?" Of course, he put it out on social media. It's one of the things I love about President Trump is that he speaks directly to people. He doesn't allow a bunch of consultants to filter him. He is who he is, and that's why a lot of us love him. But he's talking about this statement, and I've got him on speakerphone, and my kid's in the background, my 7-year-old son. We've got 3 kids, and our 7-year-old is our oldest. His name is Ewan, and Ewan is talking in the background of Pokemon or some other God-forbidden subject. I'm like, "Son, I love you, but could you please, this is the most important phone conversation I've ever gotten. So please stop talking about Pikachu for 1 second. Let me take his phone call."
Hey.
Right.
And my son comes over to the phone, and the president hears him, and President Trump says, "Who is that?" I said, "That's my 7-year-old son." And he says, "Well, put him on the phone." I'm like, "Oh, God, here it is. He's going to offer it and take it back because my 7-year-old's going to say something really weird right now." And he reads off the statement. He reads where he talks about my military service and my business background. He says, "Young man, what do you think about that? Do you like what I said about your dad?" And my son goes, "Yeah." And that's it. And that was the endorsement he needed. The statement went out 3 minutes later. And that is the kind of guy that Donald Trump is. And that's the guy that the media doesn't let you see. He actually cares about people's families. He cares about my family, but he cares about your family too. And he wants to believe that his generation left this country off in a better place than when they found it. That's why he's done this.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So he's rolling out the Trump stories. Every time you mention Trump, you got to clap. So
yeah,
it's probably a good move politically. He's got to cozy up to the big man.
Oh, yeah. And there's other considerations as well. Like Vance is really close with a lot of these tech billionaires. Peter Thiel, he's been close to most of his adult life, it sounds like, and those are important adversaries or not, allies to have in this greater 5D chess game that we're watching. So could it be that Vance is Trump's ticket into the tech world, like getting a lot of those folks on his side? I guess we'll see.
Yep. Well, Crepe Game says, could Vance be the key to uniting the people who still dislike Trump as Vance did? I think so. I think that's part of what the play is here, because apparently Vance did not like Trump. There's a clip of him that was played, I don't know, or was from like a few years ago, where Vance is like, I don't really like Trump, and I don't think he's a good guy to work with, something like that.
He said he said, I'm a never Trump person in life. But the thing is people can change their minds. A lot of people have. Like, imagine if everybody who was against Donald Trump in the beginning just had to stay that way forever. We would never make any progress.
Exactly. And, changing mind is important. If you're so resolute about what you believe and you don't want to appear flaky, but you actually have no real principles and no values, and you don't know how to, like, adjust with where the wind is taking you on the seas of life, then you're just going to run your ship aground and take us with you. And we need people who are able to actually, like, reconsider their positions. And I think that's kind of what, he's there to do.
And apparently he's like well liked with like the Gen Z crowd, like the young new Republicans coming in. I guess there was like a huge dip of millennials like being totally anti-Republican, probably because of the freshness of the Bush era, and then of course all of the rhetoric of the Obama era. That they're programmed against Republicans, but the same isn't true for this next generation coming up. So,
yep. So we've got a couple things I wanted to mention before we get too far away from the Kamala Harris thing. Let me pull that up. So I found this article that first of all, I'd written an article about all of the how do you deal with the Biden problem if Biden is no longer going to be the main candidate, and it's not as easy as you might think, because a lot of these laws or the policies over and where the Democrats have selected people are not crystal clear on what happens in this situation. So let's just take a look to review some of those things. So here we have an article from the Daily Mail, came out today. What happens next? An open convention. Does Kamala get the nomination straight away? Your questions are answered. So the Democratic National Convention runs from August 19th to the 22nd in Chicago. There are more than 4,600 delegates and thousands of other party officials who now head there. So he said he wasn't going to be running. Where is that bit? Okay, so rules. What are the nomination rules? So the Democratic Party does have rules in place which determine what happens should the president step aside before being formally nominated. While Biden had the necessary delegates, his formal nomination was set to take place during a virtual roll call before the convention. The latest guidance is that it would happen in the first 2 weeks of August, but not before August 1st. Because Biden exited the race before officially becoming the nominee, the more than 3,900 pledged delegates get to cast their ballots in an open convention for whichever candidate they want. Every alternative to Biden, whose name has been floated prior to him dropping out the race, insisted they were backing Biden. It's not clear who would jump in the race aside from Harris and his departure. So what that basically means is that it's hardly a settled situation. It's not like, Biden's nominated Harris and that's just what we're stuck with, or not we, because we don't want her to be in there. But the Republicans, or the Democrats, they're not necessarily stuck with Harris. And this kind of goes into what I wanted to talk about as well, which is some of the news that came out over the weekend. Of course, we know that, where is it here? We know that Biden dropped out of the race. That I'm sure everybody and their grandmothers heard about that. But what you might not have heard about is that Frank Biden has basically said that he believes his brother is going to not be around too much longer. So this is what Frank Biden told ABC and CBS News.
News had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's two younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self. It sounds corny in our cynical political environment, but he nor I are cynical. The goal remains the same: defeat Trump and continue the work that Joe has done. My hope is that our party rallies around this heroic act." We asked him whether he feels that his brother's overall health and vitality played a major role in this decision, and he says, "In my humble opinion, absolutely." So a member of the president's family now confirming that the president's health was indeed a major factor in this decision, and calling his brother a hero for making the decision to pass the torch to Kamala Harris.
So, Nancy, sorry, can you clarify that the family is saying his health was or was not a factor?
He's saying that in his humble opinion, yes, the president's health and vitality played a considerable role in his decision. It's important to note Frank Biden is not speaking for the family writ large. This was simply a conversation between CBS News and Frank Biden. Unclear how much input he had in this decision, but he says that he believes that his brother's health did play a role, and he says that the goal remains the same: to defeat Donald Trump.
Well, that is notable because to date, the family, the White House, the establishment has rejected the premise that there was anything that was challenging the president's mental acuity or his health, and that all these accusations were baseless, that it was just age and a few, difficult nights like he had on the debate stage. So that is a change in message.
Wow. Give me a break.
And what they, they're not going to mention on MSNBC, or maybe they will, is that Kamala Harris was just as complicit in covering all that up this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to have her on, and we're supposed to trust her. It's interesting, the state of journalism today.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is what. Where is it here? Not me. This person. Affleck 65 says, "I doubt Dems give a crap about any rules."
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you guys seen the memes going around, and also just people mentioning this, that these same people who claim that they have to be the guardians of democracy literally just forced the candidate that the American people voted for out. Right. Ostensibly voted for. I guess that's still contestable.
yeah, so I had this theory just pop into my head. It was one of many theories, as I like to think about many different things, is that how are they going to get rid of Biden? Biden seems to have doubled down after the debate. He's already known, as we were just talking about, for having a whole team around him to cover up his mistakes. What are they going to do? He's not popular at all. I think anybody with like a lick of sense does not think Biden is a good candidate for another term. I was just with my in-laws, and a staunch Democrat who is my wife's grandmother was talking to me about her doubts about him and the degree to which the people around him seem to be hiding his inadequacies. So I think almost everybody I know that I've talked to actually is like an anti-Trump person and thinks that Biden might be useful for something, only likes him because he's the personification of the anti-Trump candidacy, basically. So it's not really feasible for me that I think they're going to leave Biden in. And this is what I wrote about a week ago in an article called Assassinating Biden, how they're going to do it. And in it, I discussed the idea that, they could certainly assassinate Biden outright, but they could also have any number of things happen. They could do character assassination where they finally admit that he's, having mental decline, and they rally the troops to get rid of him. But that wouldn't really look good either, because then finally it would be like admitting that this lie that you've been telling the American people for 5 years is actually true, and we've been lying to you, whoopsie daisy, but now we need you to do what we want you to do because, their political butts are at stake. Well, now we have this story that he's, his health is declining, and he could be, he's got COVID right now. People haven't heard of him all that much. Is it possible that Biden could just pass away quietly into the night? And if he does, I think that would be a really good situation for the Democrats, because they'd have a president who died in office. They could have the whole rigmarole and the pomp and circumstance about a president serving his country even till his last days, about all this kind of thing. That would create a lot of sentiment that would build up around Biden that they could mobilize for campaigning, that they could use to poo-poo Trump and anyone else who wants to talk badly about Biden because now he is a president who died in office. You can't do that. So I talked about that pretty extensively in that article. And then here it is, days after that, Trump gets almost killed on January 13th. And then Biden does end up getting replaced. And now, yesterday, we're hearing that Biden's health might be declining. And it's entirely possible that something might happen. Now, I don't know for sure if anything's going to happen. This is just one idea to consider. But it certainly would give the deep state and their political assets a lot of clout to work with, a lot of drama energy and trauma energy they could work with to mobilize things. And that's what these guys like to do. They use trauma-based mind control all the time. You got 9/11, you got, all the stuff that we've seen over the past few years with the migrant crisis, saying that there are kids in cages that they put in there so that they could point the finger at Trump. So these guys love using drama and trauma to mobilize what they need to be mobilized in the political sphere. And I would not be surprised if they're going to pull something like this with Joe Biden's potential death here. So any comment on that?
Yeah, I think I think you might be spot on with that. I mean, remember back in the day when they would use deaths, like the death of George Bush Sr., for example, to stall something that was supposed to be happening in politics. Maybe a timely Joe Biden death will cause the government to be shut down for a day, right in a critical time. You know what I mean? It could be one of those cards that they pull out. Interestingly enough, when Bush Sr. died that December, on that day, there was supposed to be a hearing for Huber, who was investigating the Clinton Foundation and the alleged crimes against children. That never happened because they pulled out that funeral card. It's in the deep conspiracy realm, but it could be something like that where they'll use it to either mess with the scheduling of how things are playing out in the government, or they'll pull it out when they need to do a headline shift or something like that. So just something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, exactly. I think something's going to happen. I'm definitely do not think that Harris is going to be the choice. I think they're going to probably end up picking somebody else.
But how will they explain that away? What do they do? Like, we're not going to go with the black lady. We're going to go with someone else.
That's what I don't understand. I mean, if they to go into speculation land here, if Biden does end up dying in this big dramatic, oh my God, Biden died from COVID, how horrible that is. They could be like, Harris could be like, oh, well, I just, my mentor, the man that I spent the past 4 years with, I can't run now because I need to mourn the loss of this, and then they pick somebody else.
And they kind of force her to back out or something.
Yeah, because I gotta believe they're gonna do something other than Harris, but who knows? I'm not sure. I think part of what you talked about today, which is Alex Soros posting these photos of him and Harris, might have been a kind of like beta test of like, all right, let's put these pictures out. Let's see what response we get from the higher money assets in the Democratic Party and their supporters and whatnot, and see what rumors get drummed up in the people's side, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they're just going to roll over and do nothing. They're going to do something. So
I think, they are floating. They're doing like these tests. Like there was an opinion piece that came out about Hillary Clinton being the nominee to see how that would go. So I mean, maybe they're just doing some tests right now. Maybe it doesn't really matter to them who it is, as long as they're in control of that person.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, Crepe says you guys have both great points about replacing Joe Biden. Yeah, if you want to read that article that I wrote, it was pretty freaky because I wrote this, it took me like 4 days to put it together, this article about assassinating Joe Biden. And then 2 days later, Trump almost gets assassinated. Where is it here? So this is it right here. So I go into a lot of different reasons why that might be a good thing. Then I rehash the article for this one here. Just predicted Joe Biden might be dead soon, according to Brother Frank. So I kind of redid it, or just added some more points about him dying a natural death. But keep in mind, the deep state knows how to kill people and make it look like a natural thing. They've got heart attack guns. They got cancer guns.
He doesn't even have to officially die. You know, they could just be like, he's dead, and he's just like really living it up in some like.
I mean, they might have killed. They killed him back, before he even ran in 2019, and because we got this other guy who's.
Oh yeah. The prosthetic mass. It's probably some young lady at this point.
An intern, yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah, you can check that out. Go ahead.
I just drank way too much coffee, and I need to run to the little.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, guys.
So while he's doing that, let's talk about the second shooter. So I know there were some people who, admittedly, there's only one person I've seen in We the Media who doesn't think there was a second shooter, and they cited evidence of the water tower. Just for the record, I'm not saying that there was a second shooter because of the water tower. I actually evaluated that evidence about a second shooter in the water tower, and it's my opinion that the water tower wasn't necessarily a red herring, but I just think, it's a big crazy event happened. We know the media is lying to us. Everybody's going to consider all sorts of stuff. Just like there was these videos of, which I'll show you in this post, by the way, of people saying they had a video of Trump's ear getting cut by the bullet, which turned out to be bogus. So I do think there was a second shooter. I think the second shooter appeared to be ground level, and I'll show you the video that I'm talking about, although you guys have probably seen it because you're, internet sleuths just like the rest of us here. But I think at this point, there's definitely a cover-up happening. In my opinion, Trump was absolutely on the docket to be killed. I have more evidence that we're going to talk about as well in another article I wrote that that Ryan had mentioned about Victoria Nuland. So the days before the Trump assassination attempt happens, Victoria Nuland is telling the Ukrainian media that they don't have to worry about Putin anymore, or Putin doesn't have to rely on Trump because he probably won't be a problem anymore, something like that. I'll play you that clip. We've got other evidence to suggest that Trump was probably on the docket to be killed. We've got that stock market short. There were apparently 120,000 shares of stock market shorts placed on DJT stock that we had the records for, we had the screens for, we apparently had everything like a Bloomberg screen, and this was making the circuit to confirm that this probably did happen. But then the company, Austin Private Investment, something like that, had come out and said, oh, whoops, no, it was just an error. We accidentally reported that we had more holdings than we thought because this trade about shorting the DJT stock apparently happened on like June 30th. And then they reported it to the SEC on July, I believe it was 12th or something like that. But then they said, oh, whoops, we didn't actually do that. So I think that could totally be a shenanigan situation. It would be a really bad coincidence if you accidentally made a really big blunder in saying you had too many shorts for the DJT stock days before Trump accidentally gets killed. I mean, the coincidence train just piles up. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think we all can agree that the amount of coincidences you need to believe in and accidents on the part of the media and the deep state to accept the official narrative is so much so that you're going to be sucking your thumb by the end of it. So I think we've got compelling reason to believe that Trump, for sure, was on the docket to be killed. That's my contention right now. I also think that there is a second shooter. So I'm going to go over that real quick. So let me show you. Well, one thing we didn't mention before, but as you can see from the footage that we saw of the Cheatle, Kimberly Cheatle, the head of the Secret Service, hearing today, the lefties were out in full force hitting that assault rifle, guns bad, Second Amendment bad, this is why we need to ban guns narrative. Congressman Raskin was out there hitting that really hard. He had a big opening statement about that. The gun control narrative was out in force after the Trump shooting. So yeah, I won't play the video and subject you to this, but Rosie O'Donnell was out there saying it. We got Stephen King out there saying it. An AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle was used in the Butler shooting. This whole thing of like AR-15 style semi-automatic, first of all, the idea of like an AR-15 or an assault rifle has been significantly debated. I'm not like much of a gun enthusiast to tell you like definitively why, but I believe what I've been hearing. The second thing is when you hear the same terminology and the same words repeated by the same bunch of lying clowns and people who are arguably benefiting by being house slaves on the deep state plantation, you probably got to be a little more skeptical, right? And I know
Well,
you guys are. Go ahead.
Stephen King is obviously a ballistics expert.
Oh, clearly.
All of these people are.
Yeah. You know, before there were computers, he was using a typewriter, and those are exactly like assault rifles. So yeah, that narrative was out. So this is a video. This one's a little crazy. So I was on Twitter scouring it for information days after the Trump assassination attempt happened, and I saw this video come up, and I'm like, this is interesting.
There's so many reasons why like this video is just like
Garbage.
Yeah, we'll get into it after you show it. But.
So let's take a look, because it can be really, this is why you got to think critically, and we'll get into why here. I'll have a little rant about all that, but here we go. So this video claims to show the moment when Trump's ear gets cut.
We see something that said, take a look what happened. Take a look what happened.
Chécate ahí.
Check that. All right, so there's the video. Now, it might be kind of hard to see. I'll just get it. Actually, you can see it right here. Do you notice anything a little strange about the video? Do you know of Trump wearing a Donald Trump hat where the flag is mirrored? Probably not, because it doesn't exist. This is a mirrored image. This is the original video here. And take a look right here. You're going to see the gal that is in this video with the army hat, wearing the red shirt. There she is right there.
That chart.
This is the
Take a
actual
look at the
shooting.
arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So.
Fast forward a bit so we can get to the...
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
There it is. So, the video is faked. Somebody took a mirror image. You wanna...
Also, the angle that he's facing, like if you were taking the picture of his ear, this lady wouldn't be like right there behind him.
Right.
Nobody would be there. A giant crowd would be right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would be very far off, not like right up in front of him.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. I mean, so this is a faked video. Now, it was interesting because I saw this and it was going around like crazy. People were like, "Oh, this is definitely it. This is the video. Good job." And then in my Telegram group, I had what are clearly bots posting this video in my Telegram group. And I get the same, it's like the same cadre of bots. You get these bots will post pictures of like Trump with girls, like young girls on his lap, and it's Jeffrey Epstein, sitting next to Jeffrey Epstein. So fabricated photos or photos taken out of context. And, I think they're demonstrative of an intelligence agency op. Like if people were just trying to get popular and post crap in my Telegram channel and in other Telegram channels, why is half of it like totally debunkable?
Yeah.
So, have you seen any of this stuff?
Yeah, I saw the picture where it's like they were showing. I'm in a couple like groups in Facebook. One of them's called a political discussion group, but everyone's schizophrenic. It's one of the most popular groups on Facebook, and it's very reminiscent of like if the darkest, deepest recesses of liberal internet met 4chan, and they just had this like battleground to duke it out. So it's like the most extreme left or the most extreme right in a political discussion group, just like going at each other constantly. And yeah, there's all these liberals out there trying to share the picture of Donald Trump with all these little girls on his lap on the Lolita Express around as if it was evidence, as if it was fact. And they do it and they think it's real and it's not. So even smart people can fall for that kind of stuff. So that's, they assume we're all so stupid that we're just gonna, do it. And I don't care if you're the most accomplished journalist in the world. At some point in your life, you probably fell for some crap like that too. So we're not trying to like make anybody feel bad here.
Right.
It's real easy. Who has the time to go vet every single piece of information they come across on the internet? But once we do know of certain things being doctored or completely fabricated, we got to say something about it.
So. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of that going on, and part of what I wanted to get into real quick here about that story is why would they, what would possible benefit would they have for putting that kind of bogus information in there? And I think this clip from Obama really does a good job of shedding a little light on it. So this is a clip, I can't remember where it's from, but this is a real clip. I verified the fact that it's authentic. You can find fact checks from PolitiFact, because what he's about to say in this clip has been rightly interpreted as him basically admitting that they use disinformation campaigns to discredit people, manipulate public opinion, cause people to not believe the credibility and the authenticity of their democratic institutions, all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and play this clip.
And it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
So he says something really important. It's not necessarily the democratic institutions, it's in the media and each other. What it is, the spreading of disinformation like this is a divide and conquer tool, amongst other things, because this is the way it works psychologically. You share a bunch of disinformation, or you encounter a bunch of disinformation on Twitter. You're on Twitter, you're buzzing from seeing a bunch of stuff, you're trying to figure out what's happening. Maybe you even want to be the guy that shares something new within your little circle so you can get some dopamine and serotonin hits. Because every time you get validation, this is something that's well known in psychology, when you do something that you believe the people in your social tribe are going to value, then you're going to get a little psychological reward, a dopamine and serotonin hit. And if you're in front of them, you're going to get oxytocin too, and a bunch of other neurotransmitters. So the reason that's important is that basically they have found a way to get people to stake their personal reputation on finding a piece of information. Now, another thing, as soon as you share a piece of information with somebody, if you just like it, if you've shared it on your feed, if you've talked to people in your social network about it, and it ends up being wrong, it takes a certain degree of character for you to be like, you know what, I was wrong. My bad. I'm sorry about that. Because most people do not want to admit that they are wrong. Because when you admit that you're wrong, you know what happens? It's the opposite. You don't get a social reward. You get a social downgrade. You feel ostracized. And you have a kind of negative psychological effect, a punishment psychological effect on your brain. And that is so strong that people will lie, cheat, manipulate, find bogus news and information, share it, all sorts of things to try to get those psychological reward points. And the deep state, in my opinion, know how to weaponize these things. And so I've encountered people, and I know you two have, Ryan, that people who are pretty reasonable people, when they've accidentally done something they shouldn't have, like sharing a posted piece of garbage information, they will refuse to admit that they were wrong and find some excuse they have to be like, oh, whoops, I didn't do this right. And hey, I've done it too. I've done it a bunch of times. Believe me, if you don't think being the alternative media makes you encountered a few landmines out there, I've had it happen. I'm sure you have too. Right?
Oh yeah. I can't think of any of them right now, but there have definitely been times when I've shared something with like Jordan or other folks at Badlands. I'm like, what the heck is this? And then it turns out that it's something that was like, oh, that's actually from 2 years ago, or oh, that's that's not what it's being presented as, stuff like that. And then you're just like, oh, okay, good to know. And that's kind of why it's good to have a community of people out there seeking the truth, because there's only so much you can do on your own.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's part of what they're doing. I wanted to highlight that for a moment, because anytime there's an event like this, they've got multiple layers of manipulation happening. You've got them trying to hide the official story, the real story, by creating this fictitious story, by virtue of the fact that the mainstream media lemmings, like half the people that I know in my, especially my old circles, will just believe whatever the mainstream media tells them. They're going to put their name on that opinion. They're going to say, oh, no. Like another person I talked to, I won't say their name, but I had a conversation with somebody recently about this kind of stuff. And I was like, what do you think about the official story of the JFK assassination? And they were like, oh, well, they evaded the question and said that it has something to do with something else. And because this person that I was speaking to has a lot of faith in they believe that what they believe is true, and they're an intelligent person, they did not want to consider the possibility that they might have imbibed a bogus government-sponsored conspiracy theory that there was a lone gunman for the JFK assassination. And that's the whole point. Because if you don't have character, if you don't know how to discern properly, if you aren't willing to make a step towards truth by admitting you're wrong, then you will lie and maintain a narrative pushed by the mainstream media and pushed by the globalists and the intelligence apparatus to keep the illusion that you actually have a trustworthy opinion or a credible opinion. And I think that's partially why all of these events that happen, even though they're like patently not necessarily correct from an official perspective, they always have something a little bit untrue. Because if you can get the lemmings to identify with an untrue opinion, then they simultaneously will cut themselves off from the deeper truth, and they will defend their position vehemently, regardless of the situation. And I think I think that's part of the benefits for these psyops that happen. All right, so let me get back to the whole second shooter thing. So there's, in this article, by the way, this article I'm showing you here is the second Trump attack, second shooter video confirmed, water tower evidence disputed. You can go to my Substack, justindeschamps.substack.com, to check that out. The Green Beret here, there's a pretty good description of why he thinks the Secret Service was in on it, or at the very least incompetent. I'm sure you guys have seen that. I'm going to skip down to this footage here of the second shooter. There's a bunch of eyewitness accounts from mainstream media. So mainstream media on the ground interviewing people who claim to have seen a water tower shooter and claim to have seen another shooter, or seem like there was a second shooter. And I think there's evidence to suggest that. This person here has this. This is the official from the Butler town manager, I believe. And they were talking about the officers who approached Crooks and didn't apprehend him, despite the fact that he was a suspicious person. So
there's
go ahead.
After all this, there's some breaking news coming out that.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Let's hit it.
Well, maybe it'll make sense to do it after you get through the.
Okay. All right, I'm almost done with all this anyway. So, all right. So this one here, CNN on July 15th reported forensic analysis that indicates there were 3 weapons discharged at the event. Yeah. So they used audio analysis. I'm not exactly sure the technique. And they determined that there were 3 weapons. One of them was Crooks's weapon. One of them was the weapon that was used to kill Crooks, and then there was some other weapon. And this quickly kind of disappeared. And even in this article, which you can still go to, if you click on the link here, you'll go to and you look for this section in the article. It's a big, giant live coverage article. Right under this, they have a line that says, the FBI has maintained it's a lone gunman. So why would they do that? There's their own data suggests that there might be 3 weapons. I think if anybody took that audio and you brought it to another audio forensic analysis person, he would be able to tell you that there were probably 3 weapons. And and me with my amateur eyes, I can hear it. So here are the people saying that there's multiple shooters. I won't play this video because it's 4 minutes long, but this is a gal who, I believe she says she was in front of Trump to the left of the stage. Or to the left of Trump, which means she was to the right stage if you were looking at Trump, and where that contemporary guy, Corey, got killed, and where that gunman shooter was. And she claims to have actually seen the gunman on the ground, or at least she speaks to it as if she is. Her language isn't super precise, but she's recounting that. So here is this it? Yeah, so this is the footage of what looks like another gun on the ground. Now, you don't see the gun, but what you see is a discharge from the weapon, and then you see 2 people that get hit. So here we go. Let's take a look.
Something that said, take a look what happened. What happened? Take a look what happened.
So there's the gun, there's the discharge. And then you see this person go down, and then the person just up in front, they go down.
If you want to really
Now, this ballistics is kind of pointing to what somebody thinks is a water tower. That's not necessarily accurate, in my opinion. But I think that is pretty rock solid evidence that we have good reason to suspect that there was a second shooter. There were 3, like I said, the audio acoustic analysis suggests that there was 3 weapons fired. We have that. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, that's the water tower. And it could be. But in my opinion, I've seen footage of the water tower or the whatever it is, the hydraulics that gets hit by the Crooks's weapon when it gets fired, and it does not look like this. It's like a much more, violent reaction. And then you also, moments after that bullet hits or it gets shot in the video I just showed you, see those 2 people go down. I think that's good evidence for the fact that there was, in fact, a second shooter. And then lastly, I'll show you the water tower. So this is the water tower footage right here that people were saying is proof of
that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
And the footage starts shaking. Something happened. And if you can see that these are, it's all kind of like blurry right here. This is because this is what happens to footage when it gets compressed.
That chart's a couple of months old.
When you're trying to film something from far away, what you're actually seeing there is like a star of a logo. And here it is. So this is the water tower. This is the star logo. And this shadow, people are saying, some people are saying, oh, well, this is the second gunman. But as far as I can tell, that's not the case. You don't see, other than somebody pointing at the shadow and saying, oh, that's the second gun or one of the gunmen, you don't see any actual, there's no flash, there's no smoke, there's no movement really of any kind. And what it looks like more is a video artifact. That's my opinion about that. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is the second shooter. What you got for us, Ryan?
So a couple items that seem to be breaking. First of all, Pepe Deluxe posted something saying that Russia just hit the Ukrainian command center. We'll have to look and see if that's true or if that's just, some kind of like sensationalism going around. What I did find, I popped it. Yeah, you're already on it. All right, so check this out. Coming from a Twitter handle called Legislation Page, breaking, new cell phone data reveals an individual who frequently visited Crook's home and work also visited a building near the FBI office in D.C. as far back as June 2023.
Wow.
Had Crook's been contacted prior to the assassination attempt and possibly been working with the FBI or other intelligence agencies in planning the assassination of Donald Trump. And then the other one, coming from Patrick Webb, breaking, newly acquired cell phone data reveals that an individual who frequently visited Crook's home and work addresses also visited a Washington, D.C. building. So more people saying the same thing, to which Pepe Deluxe says, after today's new revelations about Cheatle, we're not surprised. Inside job, Gitmo time.
Mm-hmm.
So if that pans out to be something, which I don't know how you would explain it away as being just some normal, I guess, house call, that's pretty big. And this idea that maybe an investigation into what happened with this could lead to some big arrests isn't completely out of the question.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we have is apparently a clip of Marjorie Taylor Greene grilling Cheatle that came out while we were on air.
Oh, nice. Okay, here we go.
2 minutes before the shooting, while President Trump has been allowed to take the stage, people see Crooks laying on his stomach in a sniper position on the roof, and they're yelling he has a gun, and they are trying to alert law enforcement and Secret Service. Why was Crooks not shot by the snipers? Why was he allowed to be there?
As soon as the individual was identified as a threat, they were...
No. What do you consider to be a threat? A man with a gun laying in a sniper position, a man that had a backpack, a man that had a bicycle, a man that had a rangefinder. At what point is he determined a threat?
An individual with a backpack is not a threat. An individual with a rangefinder is not a threat.
What about a man laying on a building that has direct line of sight of President Trump with a gun that people are screaming and pointing out? Is that a threat? Ms. Cheatle?
Once that individual was identified, they were neutralized.
No, they were neutralized. Crooks was neutralized after he shot President Trump in the face, Ms. Cheatle. Is he only a threat once he fires the weapon?
As soon as the counter sniper identified that individual, they were able to neutralize them.
How were people in the crowd? Okay, then let's just take it this way. People under your command did not consider him to be a threat, yet people in the crowd knew he had a gun and considered him to be a threat. That means that you are a complete failure as the director of the Secret Service, that people under your command don't perceive a man laying on a roof with direct line to the president with a gun. They don't perceive that to be a threat, yet the people in the crowd do. How is that possible?
That's the last question, but please answer the question, Ms. Director.
I'm not certain at this time how the information from the people in the crowd was relayed to any law enforcement personnel.
No, you knew, that everyone knew. The people there knew that there was a danger. They knew there was a threat to President Trump, and it was allowed to happen. Was there a stand-down order, Ms. Cheatle? Was there a conspiracy to kill President Trump?
Absolutely not.
Then how did this happen? And why are you still sitting here not turning in your letter of resignation?
Jeez, Pete.
Wow, that was pretty good.
Yep.
All right, so let's see here. I think that's basically what we got. Before we close out with some important news, I just wanted to mention everybody to check out our sponsor, Ascent Nutrition. Ascent Nutrition has a lot of fantastic and amazing products. We sell this one called Human Fulvic. We're really trying to push because it has a lot of power to guard against a lot of the issues, the pathogens that we're seeing right now. It can break down viruses. It can break down bacteria, pathogenic bacteria. It can help chelate or suck heavy metals out of your body.
There are all kinds of toxins, free radicals right out of the blood.
Mm-hmm. And we have some of the best out there because it's like nano-sized. I mean, I know that's like a buzzword, but it really is apparently really tiny, so it can actually get really in there to help suck some things out. So I strongly suggest you get to Ascent Nutrition. Use the link in the description, and you can navigate over to the humic and fulvic acid and get yourself some. It's pretty inexpensive. It's like less than $40. If you sign up for a subscription, you get it free. You get free shipping, and you get 10% off. And it can really help remove a lot of the toxins that make us age. So basically this stuff has anti-aging type properties because a lot of the things that make us look bad as we age, that contribute to dementia, all these kind of stuff, are these heavy metals and these toxins, which you can help remove with humic and fulvic acid.
And hey, if you've been enjoying your time with us this afternoon, we can keep it rolling because we're about to hop on another live stream with our good friend Adam Riva of Dauntless Dialogue, which... I guess we can't really pop it into the comments. I mean, we could, but
yeah, do you have it?
I do. I have a version for viewers that I shared on my Telegram channel, which you guys should go follow if you don't follow already. Check me out on Telegram. Here, I can just send it straight to you because we should probably pop this in We the Media as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll pop it in the comments for you guys. Also put it in the live chat. So with the time we got, I wanted to talk to you guys about something it's fantastic news in one way, and it's also kind of terrifying in another way, but I was thinking about not talking about this because traditionally you want to wait a certain period of time before you say these things because something could happen, but me and my wife found out this last week that we will be likely having a baby here, which is pretty amazing news. Something I'm really stoked about. I love the idea of becoming a father. Something that really I fell in love with a few years ago with all the research I was doing about how the cabal weaponized our psychology and, basically have weaponized being a parent against the human civilization itself. So ever since that happened, I've had a really strong urge to play my part by bringing another life into this world. Now, what's challenging is that we're kind of caught off guard. We don't have as much in place that we wanted to have in place. We're not making millions doing the Vigilant news show. I can tell you that right now. So we're going to have to make some decisions. I'm probably going to have to go get a more lucrative position somewhere so that I can support my family, which is something I'm going to do because I want to do that for my family. But it means something might have to get sacrificed, and we're not exactly sure what effect this is going to have on this show and our work. But we wanted to tell you guys because we'd love some feedback, some interesting, anything you have, some suggestions about, ideas about. We're still trying to figure it out. Did you want to chime in with anything?
Well, just congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, that's the dream right there.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's been a whirlwind.
Even if we have to take a break from Vigilant News or go down to like a couple times a month or less, that's what you got to do for the kids. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so let me know in the comments or in the chat, probably comments because we're about to sign off here. But I'll put the Dauntless dialogue stream in the comments. There you go. So with that, I really appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out with us. Appreciate all your prayers and love and support. We're definitely holding you guys in our prayers. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world today. I mean, back in January, all the stuff that happened in the early part of the year, we're like, man, this year's going to be nuts. And it has not disappointed. Yeah. There's so much going on. And we still got another 5 months to go, something like that. So have you released anything you want to tell them about? Have you already mentioned it?
Well, I did release an article on Julian Assange in my personal Substack, the Post Liberal. And then I have an article coming out tomorrow on Badlands that you should keep an eye out for. It's going to be a good one. It's going to kind of go over a lot of stuff I talked about with JD Vance and elaborate on some of those things. And then I got another documentary coming out with Dauntless Dialogue. This one is on Balenciaga and kind of just the fashion industry as a whole, the dark side of the fashion industry. So keep an eye out for that as well. Once it's actually out and there's a trailer, I'll be talking about it more, but keep that on your radar.
Awesome. All right. All right, everybody. Well, much love. Thanks so much for tuning into Vigilant News. Don't forget to check the Post Liberal Substack, Ryan's Substack. You can go to justindeschamps.substack.com to see all the Substacks I've been putting out. I've been putting out like 3 or 4 a week. Obviously, our socials, which you can find by going to vigilant.news, looking in the show notes, and we have all our socials there. And thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Vigilant News. Much love and take care.